Leroy, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. I see a few microphones that are still open. I'm wondering if people should turn their mics off.
Yeah, go ahead and mute yourselves so that we don't get any cross talk or dogs barking in the background and all that sort of thing. And or typing noises like sometimes I'm guilty of, but I'll be muting mine as well. But we want to welcome you all to this webinar. This is something that I started with the Nordic walking groups on Facebook, just as a chance to connect people with certified instructors and share knowledge of about Nordic walking. And the idea is to give some practical, actionable knowledge to folks that they can start using right away. Now, one of the outcomes is that we want to be able to get beginners excited about Nordic walking. Almost 3/4 of the group, of the Facebook group, are beginners, and about 10% of the group are certified instructors. So we have a wealth of expertise, and we have a wealth of interest in Nordic walking. And so these webinars are, we just do these, and the instructors are kind enough to take a little bit of time to share some knowledge, and also to let you know that there are instructors out there that you can take advantage of and enroll in their classes and really learn the technique. But I'm pleased today to welcome Barb Gormley. She owns Custom Fit, and she is a master trainer for urban polling as well. And she joined the group and really enjoyed seeing some of her posts on there. And hopefully you will, in the bio that I've posted, you'll go out and take a look at her online information and follow her and do those things, because there's a lot of knowledge and expertise there. I had a chance to test this Zoom link with her a couple of days ago, and it's pretty much, she's probably forgotten more Nordic walking than I've learned. So it's really a pleasure to have Barb taking some time to do this. So without further ado, I'm going to mute my microphone and I will turn it over to Barb. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Leroy. And I just wanted to ask before I get started, have we got the chat function open? Because I'm just wondering, I know there are lots of great instructors here. They might want to, toss a thought out as we go along. If not, no big deal, but sometimes that's kind of fun. I'm all about sharing information, and this is such a great opportunity to connect with so many people. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I know we have a lot of Americans, some people from the UK, perhaps Australians. So I just love sharing information. Hey, the chat's on. Thanks, Leroy. So let me see. We don't have too much time together. I'm going to kind of talk fast. I hope that's okay. But I just thought I'd share as much information, as many ideas as possible. And these are my personal thoughts and ideas, and sort of probably a Canadian perspective as well, which I know is a little bit different. Things are a little bit different from country to country. I thought one of the best ways to do that might be, and because I know we have a lot of beginners, a lot of people who are, I know some people here today are thinking of getting into Nordic walking. I know there are 2 people here who I'm giving a Nordic walking class to next Sunday. Hi, Nancy and Monica. So I thought I'd cover some basics really quickly, all right? And a couple of years ago, I wrote a book, and one of the chapters in here is called Frequently Asked Questions, because I found myself answering the same questions over and over and over again. So I thought, hey, why don't I just, put all this info in a book? So I thought I would just kind of start there and get through maybe 8 or 10 of the most frequently asked questions to me. And I do see these questions coming up on the Facebook page as well, quite regularly, the same questions. So let me just give you my take on them. And the first one, instructors out there, you will have heard this question over and over again, and it is, can I use my hiking poles for Nordic walking? And unfortunately, the answer is no. There's really, kind of no gray zone there. It's kind of a no. And I'll just show you right here. Here are all the poles that I own. There's a wide array of them. And I like to be an efficient person. I live in kind of a small space. If I didn't have to have all these poles, I wouldn't. But I participate in a lot of sports and activities, and you actually do need a different pair of poles for each activity. The same way as if you are into basketball, balls, you can't use the same ball for every sport, right? So you can't use a basketball to play volleyball or to play soccer. They're all sort of the same size, look a bit the same, but they're all quite different when you get down and analyze them. So for example, my cross-country ski pole is super long here. It comes up to my shoulder, right? It's got a very loose little strap here. It's a fixed length, and it's got this interesting little basket and a little hooked carbide tip on the end. My hiking poles are very simple. Here's my downhill ski pole. Again, a little simple loop here, not too much to a fixed length. It's a different length, and it's got a nice little basket down here and a pointy carbide tip as well, etc., etc., etc. Here are some hiking poles. My hiking poles condense really small, and they go into my backpack really easily. That's the thing I like about them. Super light, and again, they have a pretty simple little strap system here. So those are my hiking poles, and they have a pointy end on them, a carbide tip. And then we finally get down to the Nordic walking poles. So my Nordic walking poles are collapsible. I can make them nice and short just to easily put them in my car. I can bring them up here to make them appropriate for my height. I can lend them to a friend. I can use them in a class. If I have a beginner who doesn't have her own poles, so then I can just make these the appropriate height for her. On the end, we call this a boot tip. I know some companies call it a paw, but it's rubber. It's nice and bouncy, and it's a shock absorber. And then up at this end, you can see there's no strap at all in the urban poling poles. We have this core grip handle, which also absorbs shock, has a big fat ledge on it that your hand rests on. We hold on with a nice easy grip, and that's my Nordic walking pole. I also have some poles with straps, with a strap on them, okay? And this is a little more sophisticated than just that plain old loop that's on the hiking poles and the downhill and cross-country ski poles. And some of them are quite sophisticated. It's a glove and strap system. And sometimes they will actually have a quick release on them. All right, so we've got two kinds of Nordic walking poles here. Here's what the paw or boot tip looks like on these poles. A little bit smaller, still great, right? And this one also telescopes as well. So it's quite complicated, and I've still got a few more pairs of poles here, but it's quite complicated. But the answer is you do need to get Nordic walking poles. So which one should you get? You could research forever and ever, but my suggestion is that you just go and find an instructor. Many good reasons to find an instructor, and then just see what that instructor is using. Trust that an instructor is using good quality equipment, and he or she will be able to help you just kind of get through the whole equipment thing. And then once you're getting comfortable with the equipment, it becomes much less confusing, and you're able to recognize Nordic walking poles from all the other poles that are out there. All right. So while we're talking about hiking and Nordic walking, and I just want to say hiking, we use different terms around the world. So here in Canada, we usually say hiking, but also trekking. And I know some places, I was in New Zealand and they call it tramping there. It's all kind of the same thing. So hiking, trekking, tramping pole, right, is one option. And then the Nordic walking pole is another option. And so the difference between the two activities, what we do with those poles, is quite big. Most people come, I find, or some people come to my classes, think that we're going to be hiking with our Nordic walking poles, and they're very surprised when they see, oh my, that's not what I thought we would be doing at all. If you are to go hiking and take your hiking poles out, it's really pretty straightforward. So here's my hiking pole. Where's my hiking pole? I put my hand through the strap, I hold on to it, I adjust it to a length that feels appropriate for me. It's probably going to be sort of 90 degrees at the elbow here, because that just, my intuition tells me that's kind of comfortable. And then off I go. I really don't need too much instruction at all. Again, my intuition is going to tell me to keep the tips of the poles away from my feet. So I'm probably going to walk like this with my hiking poles, or I might get them behind me at some point and be walking like this with them, but pretty straightforward. All right. And then the purpose of using hiking poles is really important. The purpose of using hiking poles is to minimize effort. If you've ever forgotten your hiking poles, you know, and you do kind of a standard trail and then you come home. If you forget your poles, you will be much more fatigued and much more tired when you get home. All right. So the purpose of the hiking pole is to minimize effort. Really, it's all about balance and stability, right? They just make you so stable on your feet. It's the very opposite with a Nordic walking pole. We have a very specific technique, which I'll show you in a minute if you're not familiar with it. And we're trying to maximize effort. All right, we're trying to take regular old ho-hum, sort of boring walking and turn it into a workout so that we could go out Nordic walking for an hour, maybe the same way that we might play tennis for an hour or go for a jog for an hour. We really are trying to turn it into a legitimate workout. And so to do that, all right, we're going to be very particular about the length of the poles. We're not going to use our intuition. The company that makes our poles is going to tell us how to set them up at the right height, okay? We're going to have a right and a left handle, okay? Some hiking poles don't. And we're going to be very particular about our posture. And we're going to be walking with our arms swinging like long pendulums. Maybe people just want to check to make sure their microphones are off and that they're muted. We're going to be walking with our arms swinging like long pendulums like this. Okay, so it's very, very different. It takes more effort, it takes more focus, it takes more concentration, and I really believe that you need a lesson. When I first got started, I guess it was 15 years or so ago now, I was doing a lot of different things. I've always been in the fitness field. I have a health and physical education degree, and so I was part of my company was training long distance marathon power walkers, and so that's how I came to be involved with urban polling. They were way over in Vancouver on the West Coast. They wanted to expand their business to the central, more highly populated area of the country where I live. And so they contacted me, sent me some poles, and I was very excited about it. I took a colleague out, they sent me 2 pairs. I watched the DVD. These were in the days when, you know, we get a DVD with them. I watched it 4 times at least and just kind of memorized all the steps and felt pretty good, pretty excited to go out. I was going to have this new tool to share with people and had a very disappointing experience. Very, very disappointing. The poles kept slipping around and I just, you know, I just thought, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but it was extremely disappointing. Luckily, I didn't kind of let on that that's what had happened with the poles. And when I got a lesson, I had one of those Oprah aha moments. And it's like, whoa, this is fantastic. Because all of a sudden I could feel all those posterior muscles on my body just completely engaged and propelling me forward. And it was just a few little things. Mandy Shintani is one of the co-founders of the company. And so she was giving this instructor training that I was in. It was just these little things that she passed on that fixed all the issues and turned it into that full body workout that we love so much. So I really think it's so important to get a lesson. I know it's not always easy if you live in a small town or just if you live in Alabama where there's not too much happening with Nordic walking yet. So you really just, I think, have to sort of search around your best and just kind of do your best, or maybe you have to get in the car and go somewhere and get a lesson. But to get the full benefits and to really get the workout, it's like any activity, you have to do it properly. Maybe you're like me because we're all fitness people and you like lessons. I really believe in taking a lesson for anything new I do. And so I even took a lesson, well, not even, but stand up paddle boarding. I know that I could just get out and stand on the board and paddle and probably have a good time. And I had done that before, or have done it at cottages for sure. But it was very interesting. I learned a lot about boards. The right board, you can't just get on any old board, right? Depends on your weight mostly and your skill level. And there is a specific way of paddling and there are little tricks. And so I think, you know, everything new that we do, it's always very helpful to have some instruction. I always say to people that Nordic walking is not that difficult. It's not brain surgery, but it's very difficult, I think, just to kind of self-teach yourself and get over all that. You know, I find I do a lot of troubleshooting. It's just like little things when I'm teaching a lesson. I'm constantly moving up to the next person. Okay, let's try this. Oops, I noticed that. Let's try this. It takes just all these little tweaks to get it to kind of all come together. All right, moving on to the next one. People always ask me, when should I replace my boot tips, okay, or paws, whatever you call them? And I say, as soon as the tread starts to wear down. Think of your boot tips as car tires, right? And when the tires start to get, wear down, oops, time for new tires. But like car tires, if you take really good care of your boot tips, they will last much, much longer. All right. And the trick to making them last a long time is to make sure that you are planting your boot tips like this. Oops. And not dragging them back and forth. If you're just a beginner and it's your first lesson or second or third lesson and you're really focusing on the arm swing and the posture and all that, that's fine. But as instructors, I try to quickly move people on so they don't get too comfortable with that dragging. So I guess there's two things here. One is it's going to smooth these out till they're smooth as a baby's bottom. I've seen some of them just so smooth, it's just incredible. And the problem with that is you lose the shock absorption. Right? We really need a nice springy landing. That's what feels good on the body. And what's the other thing? I had one more. Oh, the other thing, sorry. The other thing, well, we'll just leave it at that for now because I've kind of lost my train of thought. Okay, but we want to keep. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Good technique. The planting. We just want them to lift like kind of a centimeter or so off the ground. It's very small, but it's the same. It's the same as downhill skiing. If any of you are downhill skiers, you try not to drag your poles down the hill. Right? You plant them and pivot. You plant and pivot. So it's the same thing. It's not horrible if you do that, but really good, nice, clean technique has that nice little lift and lower to them. Somebody or people often will say to me, it will be in a class, or maybe there'll be 20 of us going through this park, and we'll see some people coming Nordic walking towards us, and I'll kind of quietly say to people, oh, let's check out these, this technique as this person goes by. So the person goes by, we say, good morning, and then we have a little discussion about it, because 9 times out of 10, the person doesn't have very, very good technique. And people in my classes find this a bit confusing, like, what's the story with all these people around us? And basically, I'm not exactly sure what the answer is, but I think they have just been to the big box store and bought their Nordic walking poles and just decided to take them out and assuming that they're going to be using them in a hiking style. So if they get a good workout from it and they're enjoying themselves, that's fine. I just hope they aren't calling themselves Nordic walkers, but I'm afraid some of them might be. So that's kind of the answer to why are people doing different things with Nordic walking poles out there. The biggest mistake that I see, so this is another one of my most frequently asked questions, is bending of the elbows. And I'm sure all the instructors out there are nodding, right? It's challenging. It takes more muscle, it takes more coordination and more focus to swing your arms like 2 long pendulums, which was what I think a lot of us say. So, but to get the benefits, to challenge the muscles, to get the heart rate up, to burn the calories, to improve the posture, et cetera, we need to be swinging our arms like 2 long pendulums. It's not natural to do that, really. The body always likes to be comfortable. So if you lose your focus, right, or you get into a really good conversation. I had taught 2 classes this morning, and we're kind of into a new session, and I had to do quite a few reminders because people were very happy to see each other and there's a lot of chatter going, but the louder or the more interesting the chatter, I find the worse the technique is. So the arms need to be long and straight. I find we have to do a lot. I have to do a lot of selling sometimes. So I have to talk about, if you want the benefits, you got to have the long arms, and then have a few other lots and lots of other ways to kind of talk about that to encourage and really get people to buy into the fact that they need to keep their arms long. One of them that I do is I'll say, all right, everybody, let's just put our poles aside for a second. Stick one arm out the front. All right. And so now I want you to pretend, let's just kind of brace ourselves here, 1 foot in front of the other. Now let me just put something very heavy, an imaginary world, in your hand here, like a bowling ball, a 10-pound bowling ball, or maybe a big watermelon or something, okay? And now, how hard is it to hold that out there? Could you hold that out there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. What's happening to your core? Again, visualize you've got something really heavy there. You feel your core tightening up. Me too. I feel everything tightening up to hold that imaginary heavy object there. Now, what if I ask you to hold it in here like this? Now what happens? And people say, oh, this is much more comfortable on this shorter lever, right? This is much more comfortable. Oh, I can let my abs go here. This is pretty comfortable. So if we apply that physics, which really what it is, to the poles, right? That's our concept. We want to use that concept of long levers with a resistance, a weight on the end, way out there on the end, to get this stuff engaged and working, and to really create that workout. As soon as it becomes a small little action in here, the workout really disappears. And with beginners, if they can't do it, right, if it's just too much physically, to me, that means we need to have a few more little breaks and stop and stretch and a stop and chat and a stop and look at this beautiful weather. Let's roll our shoulders, and then kind of back we go again, and you know, start from the beginning once we're refreshed. I just think it's so important from the beginning to develop this sensation of the long arms. One of the things, so I'm writing a book for instructors now, and one of the things I'm sort of a companion to the first book I wrote, and one of the things I'm compiling is a list of, you know, some of those visual aids and, you know, phrases that we use to help people get those long arms. So, you know, so we say too long pendulums is a really common one, right? The handshake position is another one. I say, pretend you're in the military and you're marching in a parade and you've got that proud posture and you've got your medals on your chest and you're swinging your arms proudly. So, and you just kind of keep trying these to see what works. I mean, you don't want to use a whole bunch. I'm trying to come up with 20. I think I'm at 17 right now. I'll tell you a couple more. I'd love you to share some if you have some. So you really need to kind of throw them out and hopefully they work. If the handshake idea works, I just keep repeating that. Excellent. Long handshake, everybody. Remember. And if that doesn't work, you try something else. The funniest one that I have, it was fantastic. I was in this small farming community on Lake Huron, if you're from where I am. And so I'm teaching, and it was young women, sort of all in their 30s and 40s maybe. And everything was going along well, but we were at that stage about, this is hard to keep the arms long and straight. And so they were trying to get the feeling for it. And I was, you know, giving my typical, you know, shaking hands with both hands. It's a long, formal handshake, not a wimpy handshake. I was trying all these things. And then eventually one of the young women in the group said, "Oh, hey, everybody, it's like milking a cow." And I went, "Oh," and the whole group went, "Oh, like milking a cow." So anyway, I guess when you milk a cow, you have your arms very long and you have to reach and stretch under that cow. And anyway, I've sort of added that to my list. I don't actually use it. I just kind of tell that story when I'm teaching. And it is funny, sometimes big city people, even though they've never milked a cow, it does work for them somehow because they can kind of visualize someone milking a cow. So that's the biggest thing I think to struggle with. And even though I've had, as an instructor, even though I've had people in some of my classes for 8 years, you know, I have a couple people in my mind right now. I'm still cueing them. Long, straight arms, everybody. Why do you need to take a series of lessons? I get that question as well. So I think people understand, okay, a lesson to learn how to do it. Great. Why would I want to sign up for one of your 10-week sessions? Why would I come back for 3 sessions a year and do that for 7 years in a row? Well, big, long list of reasons. One is you've got somebody like me there who's keeping on top of things and making sure that your technique is good and that you're not slipping back into, you know, a more comfortable position, and you're not, you know, you're maximizing effort instead of minimizing effort. You know, instructors, we do warm-ups, we do a cool down. I often stop in classes and we do a few little exercises along the way. I create interesting routes and take us on, you know, beautiful places to see. I point out historic sites. I tell little stories about this, little stories about that. So it really makes it sort of what I like to think, sort of just a bigger, kind of a little more interesting than just a plain old Nordic walking workout. There's also the social aspect, which is great. I find that most people come to my classes on their own. I'm not sure why. They read about it and just something they decide they want to do, and everybody's very open to making friends. I've never really met an unfriendly Nordic walker. And so it's just a really lovely time with like-minded people. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And then, of course, with any lesson, if you've paid for something, you tend to show up for it, even if it's a very nominal fee, I find. So it's another good way to keep yourself on track with your exercise. There's 2 things that I always talk about when I'm teaching a lesson. And even if people don't bring it up, I bring it up and ask if anybody's having this issue. And that is the slipping boot tip. Okay, the slipping boot tip. And this is what happened to me when I went out with the poles the first time. I did not get a workout because I couldn't get that traction and then the push and propulsion because my boot tips and the colleague I was with, same thing. Our boot tips kept slipping back. Maybe not each time, but lots of times. And that's why it just didn't seem fun and it didn't seem like a workout. So I always ask, is anybody having trouble with their boot tip slipping? Somebody always says yes. And then often, and then I ask, which arm is it? And it usually ends up being the non-dominant arm. So my little explanation to people is that, when you're swinging, okay, your strong arm, all right, your dominant arm, right, is probably coming up to the proper place. This is my dominant arm. So here it is, up, in this handshake position. And then my non-dominant arm, because it's not as smart, it's not as coordinated, it's just not as strong. It thinks it's coming up there, but it kind of only gets to here maybe, right? So you can't even visually see the difference, but it doesn't quite get there. So my strong arm, the entire boot tip lands on the ground like this. I've got all that surface area of it and I can push right off it. But with the weaker one, I only get the little heel of it there, right? If I just swung my handle up, I tell people an inch. It's not too much. Who knows what it is, but I think it's helpful to give people a number, an inch or two. If I just swung up a little higher, I would have had the whole surface area there. And then I would have had, whoa, nice leverage, right? To push myself forward. It's a little tweak, but you'll never really see that written down anywhere. I haven't, it's in my book, but I've never seen that anywhere. So it's just one of those things that we can pass on to people in our classes and when we're troubleshooting why they're having trouble. The other thing is the bouncing, the double bounce, right? And that's usually the same thing. So I explain it at the same time as the slipping boot tip. It's that non-dominant arm again. It thinks it's pressing down very firmly on the ledge here or on the strap, whichever kind of pole you have, but it's not pressing down quite as hard. And therefore it's not sticking to the ground. It's doing a little bounce, 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 bounce. All right. And these are things that people can correct just the moment you say them. It's very simple to correct them. And they're very, very thankful because all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this is great. It's really moved their workout, up into like a true Nordic walking and enjoyable zone. So I want to share a few secrets with you too. So I have one article. I'm also a magazine writer. So the book is not a kind of an academic kind of thing. It's almost like articles, right? Here's how to walk with your dog. 5 tips and stories from 3 different people, 3 different leashes and systems they have. What else do I have here? Anyway, let me just go to this page here, which is, I call this one Nordic Walking Secrets That Really Work. So I'm going to share 2 secrets with you, all right? And the first one is, these are just really practical things that I just kind of figured out as I went along, but I'm always encouraging people in my classes not to overdress. In Australia, I'm sure you don't have that problem. Right here, it was -17 when we went out this morning, Celsius, which is very cold. All right, but you still have to be a little chilly when you leave, right? Because you're going to warm up a lot. So I encourage people to leave that jacket behind you. Really need that jacket, because what happens is 15 minutes into it, they want the jacket off. They stop and take the jacket off, right? I see you nodding, yeah. And then they do this, okay, fine. And if you were just walking, that would be fine. But look what happens when you have Nordic walking poles. You've got your car keys over here. And everything gets, it's noisy because the zipper is hitting on your poles, and it really is not great. So here's my trick for that. So you take your coat off, all right, you zip it up, right? Zip your coat up, all right, which takes an extra minute, but not much. Then you put it on, and then look what happens. You have this nice little package behind you, and you kind of forget that you've got your coat around your waist. All right, so that's, somebody told me, Barb, that's your best Nordic walking tip ever. So has nothing to do with Nordic walking really, but here's another one, which might seem like, you know, do we really need to know this? But I found this really important as an instructor. So let's say you've got 20 people and you're out Nordic walking and somebody's shoelaces come undone. Have you ever had that in your class? Thank you. I see some more nods out there. Because what happened, okay, you're all together and you're working hard as an instructor to keep your slower walkers and your faster walkers together, right? So there's a whole bunch of tricks you do to do that. So you're working hard to keep everybody together. Great, great, great. Then somebody's shoelace comes undone. They stop, they put their poles down, they crouch down, or some people will have to find some place to put their foot up. Then they have to take their gloves off, their mitts off, if it's winter in Canada. Meanwhile, you know, they haven't even touched their shoelaces yet, and the class is sort of gone. So this is how I tell people to do up their shoelaces. It's just a shoelace technique tying thing. So you just cross right over left the way you normally would, okay? And then you do one bunny ear the way you normally would. You wrap around the way you normally would, and here's what's different. Wrap around one more time, and then pull it through, and then you go like that. Okay. And the way I learned this, see how nice that looks? See how the bows are like this? I was at a photo shoot and the photographer didn't like the way my shoes looked, because if you do it the normal way, your shoelaces end up looking like this. So anyway, she redid my shoes. And when I was undoing my shoes, I thought, oh, wow, these are really sturdily, you know, they're locked in place. So I did a little experimenting. This is much better. I think it has to do a lot with the shoelaces too. Some shoelaces just come undone, even with a double knot, right? You can see them loosening. So anyway, that's just a little trick that I really encourage all my walkers to do. And you can tell immediately if you look down, not that I'm asking, you know, checking everybody's shoes, but it's very obvious who has done that and who hasn't. And here's another little trick I just happened to see on this shoe. These are my indoor shoes. And when you wear your shoes indoors, it's very easy to forget how old they are because they never get dirty, right? But they're like boot tips. They wear down, they compress inside, and they get super comfortable. And then eventually something says, oh, I better go get a new pair of shoes. You put on the new pair of shoes and you go, wow, these feel great. I should have bought these a long time ago. The same as boot tips, right? When you put on those new boot tips, they feel so springy and so wonderful. But anyway, what I do, and I tell people to do indoor shoes, outdoor shoes, whatever, is write the date. So these ones say October 21 on them. So I know exactly how old these shoes are. I have a lot of shoes too. If you're just working with one pair of shoes, maybe you remember, but I have a lot. So I do find that's helpful. And if you write it right here, it doesn't wear off, right? It's just kind of a place that doesn't get any wear and tear. So anyway, those are a couple of the tips that I have on that page in the book. I want to show you another pair of poles because I do hear people talking about the activators. Oh, here's the activator right here. The Activator Poles, that's a name, it's an urban poling brand name, all right? And these are not Nordic walking poles, all right? Just to let you know. And you can tell it's not a Nordic walking pole because look at the bottom here. Nordic walking poles have a boot tip or a paw that has an angle on it because when we walk, we angle the poles, right? So this is a pole for balance and stability. I know we have some physiotherapists with us today who just love these poles. They're hugely, hugely popular here in Canada and around the world now, actually, since the urban poling has really expanded internationally. But these came about because the co-owner of the company, Mandy Shintani, this is where the company actually started, is an occupational therapist and gerontologist. And she was working with a lot of people, being a gerontologist, who were hunching forward with canes and with walkers. They would even have surgery, you know, some spinal surgery to get them in a more extended position. And then they would go home with a wheeled walker or a cane, and it just wasn't making sense to her. And so these are sort of a replacement on your physiotherapist, physician's, you know, recommendation, of course. And the handle's the very same as the urban poling Nordic walking poles. It's aluminum. All of these poles are aluminum. Okay, it makes them a little bit heavier, but I like the extra weight actually. I'm comfortable using strapless and strapped poles. I like them both. They're just a little different. So anyway, this is all aluminum, but it's got a button system here, you know, like some canes have. So there's absolutely no way, if you need to make these longer, you just pop this into a different button. There's absolutely no way this pole would ever compress, right? And then the walking technique is more of a hiking-ish technique, okay? It's not Nordic walking. I just have one here, but imagine I have another one. It's like a choo-choo train. It's like a choo-choo train here. Okay, always keeping the pole vertical. The hardest part I find is people will keep this pole vertical as it comes forward, but they have to remember, sorry, I don't have the partner here. We'll just pretend this is a pretend these are both activators. This one has to stay vertical as well, right? So this hand goes forward and this hand goes back a little bit. This one goes forward and this one comes back. That's how you keep the energy going down and the stability, going up, right? Really keeping you stable. It's all about pressing on the ledge here. We always, Nordic walkers, whatever kind of equipment you're using, we always have a nice easy grip, right? This is super fat, so if you happen to have arthritic fingers, very easy to hold on to. All right, so just want to make that clear. The activators are not Nordic walking poles. They just happen to be made by a company that makes Nordic walking poles. I do have a tip for instructors, and I was trying to think, what would the tip be? We don't have too much time. I see that we're over time already. But I did want to say that one of the things I found is that I could speed learning and make everything more efficient the more comfortable that I am able to make the learning environment. So most of the people I'm teaching are, adults, older adults, perhaps haven't taken a lesson, perhaps aren't very sporty. And I think their anxiety level is sometimes up a little bit. And so I do absolutely everything to make them really relaxed. So even in the emails, like we're meeting here, here's a little map, we're going to meet right at this bench. I just try and stay very relaxed. I also always make sure that I say, by the way, this will not be a big, long, sweaty tour of the park. We're going to be going back and forth, close to our starting position, stopping and starting, doing a little chatting, et cetera, et cetera. So I find that people arrive feeling, okay, I think this might be kind of fun. And then just trying to maintain that same kind of sense of everything's going to be fine. We're all going to be Nordic walking by the end of this session. All right. I can pretty much guarantee that. And just I do find that is so important. We focus so much, I think, or I used to in the beginning, so much on those steps, getting through the steps. And we still have to do that. But I do think that relaxing environment really, if there's any sense of anxiety or discomfort there, it really has a huge impact on people's ability to learn. We want people to feel comfortable and happy, and learning everybody's names, of course. So I like everyone to know everyone's names, and I ask lots of questions too, so people aren't silent through the whole lesson. Do little quizzes, okay, watch me now. What have I forgotten here? Nothing too tricky. And that really builds people's confidence so that when they leave, they feel good. They know what Nordic walking is. They might not have it all exactly down, but they feel good. They feel confident. And hey, yeah, this is fun. I want to do this some more. And maybe I'll join Barb's class and become part of that group. So I just did want to sort of pass that on. And then another thing too, just everybody out there, if you're not an instructor, we need more instructors, please. So don't feel that you have to, have a huge long history with Nordic walking to become an instructor. If you're keen and you're interested and you have good technique, then please look into becoming an instructor. Because I always, when I finish teacher training, I say, go out into the world now, and teach as many people as you can. We need good examples of, proper Nordic walking technique out there so that people start to pick it up and understand that it's not hiking, right? And it just becomes a bit more of the norm, and just more knowledge. I know when I started 15 years ago, people did not know what Nordic walking was, no idea what it was. Now they know what it is. Oh, it's walking with poles. So I figure, that's a step further. And I think some of them know it's not hiking, but we still need to kind of keep growing the industry. So if you have any thoughts of being an instructor, please follow through with that. And my suggestion is whichever poles you have, most companies have instructor training, right? So just go to that company and check out their training and go from there. I did just want to say a couple of things. I guess we're going to have a quick Q&A. Are we okay time-wise, Leroy?
Yeah, for those that need to take off, feel free to take off, but we have a couple of questions in the chat room, and I'm sure that other folks will want to chime in as well.
Okay. Great. Let me just say a couple other things, and then, I'd love to have some questions. One is I teach too, if you've been to my website, it's just my name, barbgormley.com. I try and put lots of free stuff on there. So if you go to my blog, you'll see lots of articles on Nordic walking. So you might find those helpful if you're a new instructor or you're new to Nordic walking. I've also got some free classes. I teach classes with poles. One's quite moderately paced, and it's on Mondays, and I know some of you come to it. Nice to see you. And so if you're looking for ideas, instructors on exercises you can do with poles, or if any of you want to join that class, that would be great. I teach another virtual class, which is kind of the classic low impact aerobics class. Those of you who are doing, aerobics in the, in the 80s and 90s with me, right? So it's a lot of fun. It's called cardio, weights and core, and that's on Wednesdays. Lots of fun. And then I also have some on-demand free classes on my website too. I did them actually for a nephrologist, kidney specialist. People with kidney disease have very low levels of energy, and she couldn't find anything with the poles. Her clients are all using Activator Poles for balance and stability. So I did 3 levels of classes, very, very low energy sitting in a chair, little higher energy sitting in a chair with the poles. And then the third one is actually very similar to my fitness with poles class, I call it. And that's standing and using the poles, moving to music. All of these classes move to music. And then one other thing I just wanted to say too, just to wrap up, that I'd be very happy to give everybody who's stayed to the end here, thanks. I'll give you a free copy, a digital copy of my book. So I thought when we sign off here, I'll just quickly run to my website. In the book, I think it's the digital copy is $9.99 or something. I'm gonna, for 10 minutes. All right, I'm going to put it at $0 so you can buy that, but just for 10 minutes. So you'll have to zip to your computer fast, okay? And it's just a digital download. The hard copy is there as well, and this is also on Amazon. But anyway, so there's just something else to wrap up with on a happy note. I find in this, I don't know what's happening in your part of the world, but I'm always searching for happy things, happy news to talk about, happy happenings. I have an orchid blooming here that I got to bloom for the second time. That's my big happy news for the day this bloom came out. So anyway, there's some happy news, hopefully, to pass on to you, a free book.
Great, thank you.
And what I'll do, I'll leave the Zoom room open for a while longer after we actually end. And that way, if Barb puts that link in the chat room, you'll be able to access it for a little while, because I'll leave the room open.
Sorry, a link to what, Leroy?
That book, if you were.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I think if you just go to my website, and go to the shop page. There's a tab across the top, fitness classes, Nordic walking, et cetera, and one of them says shop. So just go there and you'll see it available there.
Good. I put the link to her site in the chat room.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks, Juliet. Hey, hey, Juliet, I'm going to use, with your permission, I'm going to quote, I'll email you, whatever, but I'm going to use, I know how I said I was coming up with like 20 ways to say, keep your arms long, everyone. I love the one that you did in the previous webinar with Leroy, when you said, normally we walk and we swing our arms to 7 o'clock, but with Nordic walking, we swing up to 8 o'clock, right? Is that you, Juliet?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like you, always looking for another way to describe it.
Exactly. I love that. I've tried it and it works perfectly, because one of those first steps we do is we say, let's put our poles aside and go for a little walk, everyone. Right? Da, 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 da. And so that's when it really works beautifully. It works beautifully. So thank you.
Well, here's a question in the chat room. Could you please review proper pole lengths from Dana?
Proper pole length. Okay, if you have urban poling brand poles, it's really easy. You find your height. I'm 5'4". I spin my pole over. It says 5'4" right here. I go down here and I lock my pole, right? If I'm new, I usually take them just 2 inches lower, whatever centimeters is on the other side. If you have another brand of poles, typically what you do is you take the pole, assuming it's a telescoping pole, you put your elbow at your side and you want your elbow approximately at 90 degrees and you lock your pole there. Yeah, okay. Just the simplest terms.
From Gail, could you back up some and go through an entire stride?
Oh, go through an entire stride, okay. I'm just gonna do it without poles. Well, go through an entire stride. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. We swing up to a handshake position, all right, or up to 8 o'clock. All right, plant the pole down there, right? If you've swung up to 8 o'clock and your arm is long and straight, that boot tip should be in the right place. Don't worry about it. Get your arm in the right place and your boot tip will be in the right place. Press down, right? right? Press down either on the ledge of your handles on the strap and press your hand down to the side of your thigh. And as you go forward, your hand will come back a little bit behind you and off you go. And you just kind of keep repeating that. Before all that, you lift your rib cage up so you're standing really tall. Make yourself very tall through the waist. And don't worry too much about your legs. They just kind of go along, I find, for the ride, right? We really are thinking about the core, the torso, the arms, the posture. We want to take a stride a little longer, okay? We do have to say that. The stride's a little longer than normal, okay? But if you're swinging up to the handshake position, which is a little higher than normal, then that longer stride should just follow naturally.
Hey, Barb, it's Kathy here. What's the difference between the urban pole and the Nordic, and or really more about why one versus the other?
It's a personal preference, and I do find that people have very strong opinions, right? So they either like the strapless, right? And there's different brands of strapless, or they like the ones with the straps, okay? I generally find it's the first one you come across or the ones your instructor uses. Those are the ones you really like and you stick with, and that's great. I don't have a personal preference. I use them both. I work for urban polling. So, you know, I am partial to this equipment, of course. So I guess I better say that. The difference though is, well, let me see. From an instructor point of view, I like urban polling brand because there's no strap there. I can quickly put both poles in my hand and do something, right? I can, not that I'm manipulating my clients or anything, but I've got my hands free if I need to do anything without undoing Velcro or even like a quick release, right? It's just very easy if I need to quickly do something. Sometimes I find I need to toss my poles at the side and do a demonstration of something. And it's just very, very simple that way. I find just sort of back to the handle. I see a lot of people out using poles who haven't taken a lesson, obviously, and the straps are dangling. And I can see that they've got a glove and all that glove system, and they're real Nordic walking poles, but they're uncomfortable tying. They're tying themselves, attaching themselves to their handles. So that's not good. If they took a lesson, I'm sure they'd probably be comfortable enough, but that's not so great. There is, you know, we have a little difficulty getting more of a hand back and extension without the strap. When you have a strap, you release your hand. To me, there's pros and cons. You release your hand back here, and the pole, the pole is actually sort of free for a split second, but because the strap is there, keeping the handle close by, you quickly just kind of grab it, right, as it comes up. I do find that that's a little tricky. Some people have a hard time doing that, you know, so I keep one hand. Let's just get that one hand releasing. Let's get the other hand. Now, can we get them both? You know, everybody has their own tricks to getting it happening, but it is one less step. Some people feel though that without that nice big long shoulder extension here, that you're really missing something with Nordic walking, with the poles without the straps. And have I missed anything? I guess those are the key things.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
From Carrie, does Nordic walking improve bone health?
Good question.
Yes. Yeah, anytime we've got that nice resistance force, anybody wants to pitch in here, Juliet or any other physiotherapist. With the walking, we need a strong heel strike, right? We need a strong heel strike if we want to make a difference. If we want, you know, tendons, ligaments, etc., pulling on bones, we need that strong heel strike, and we get more of that with our longer stride. I'm not sure about the upper body. You know, do we have enough of a press down, enough of kind of a upper body pressure to increase bone strength? Does anybody know out there?
In my world, we are focused on, as you are contracting back and then coming forward, is the contraction of the muscles on the thoracic spine for increasing the spinal bone density, which the thoracic spine is the most challenged area.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Somebody's just asking the book. I'm going to put the book free when we sign off for 10 minutes after we sign off, okay? It's still at $9.99 right now.
Joyce wants to know is the urban poling instructor course the same as a Nordic walking course?
It's a Nordic walking instructor course, if that's what you're asking. There's a, not sure. The Nordic walking instructor course from Urban Poling, yes, it's a Nordic walking instructor course. Does that answer the question? It's not for the general public, if that's what you're asking. It's for instructors. If you go to urbanpoling.com and see a course there, there are many courses there. If you haven't been to the Urban Poling website yet, and for many, many specialties for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and MS and arthritis, and a wealth of information there.
Joyce, were you thinking that the difference was Urban Poling was teaching how to teach use of the poles without the straps, and then a Nordic walking course is more of that globe pole? Is that what you were thinking?
No, I have the urban poling instructor course. I've taken it. I've got the certificate, but I was just wondering, is it anything different than the Nordic walking course? I have the urban poling instructor.
If you were to take it from another company, you mean? Other companies also have Nordic walking instructor courses, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. So other companies, so Urban Poling has an instructor course.
Right.
It's particular to their equipment, and other companies have courses that are specific to their equipment. I think you'll find them quite similar.
Yeah. Okay. So Nordic and urban poling, the instructor course, basically the same.
I'm not sure what you mean when you say Nordic. Urban Poling is Nordic walking.
Okay, so it is, okay, urban poling is, okay.
Yeah. If somebody says, I love Urban Poling, it's a bit confusing. Often what they mean is, I love Nordic walking and I use Urban Poling equipment. It's become a bit of and people talk about the urban poles. I find that a bit confusing too. That's like Urban Poling brand poles they mean. Because here in Canada, I mean, I was telling Leroy, the companies are private, so we don't really know, and I'm certainly not in the know because I'm not at that level in the company, but we're a huge company here. And most of the people I see, any Canadians out there want to tell me something different, are Urban Poling brand poles. So we're very big here.
I'm from Calgary, yes.
Oh, great.
Okay, so I took that course.
Yeah,
Okay.
Excellent.
Excellent, thank you.
Good, you're welcome.
I'm going to jump in again with another question. I'm sorry if I'm ahead because I can't enter on the chat. But is there any active research that's going on right now, Barb, within the urban poling and the physiological benefits of urban poling?
Tons. So go to urbanpoling.com and you'll see, so Mandy Shintani, the co-founder, because she's an occupational therapist, everything about the poles, and it's all evidence-based, everything. And she bases everything on research. And she'll have, last time I looked, maybe there were 80 research studies, and some of them are done specifically on urban poling stuff. So go to the Urban Poling website and you'll find all kinds of stuff there. If you're doing any kind of presentation or anything, it's a great source to find stuff. You could even call Mandy and she'd love to talk to you.
I just posted the link
Thank you.
to that in the chat,
Great.
urbanpoling.com. Those were the questions on chat. Any questions from the group at large?
Do people?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you, both of you, for Barb and for Leroy putting this together. Great suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. You're welcome.
Oh, I have a question. This is Dana here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Dana.
Hi. So I noticed on your poles, you have a locking mechanism, like a little,
Yeah.
yeah, I bought my urban poles quite a few years ago. They didn't have those. Is that something new with the newer ones?
Yeah. These are the spirit poles. And this is, I think probably over time that they will all switch to this flip lock system. It's just a little easier. Some people have trouble. Which way do I turn this? Which way I turn that? So it's just a little more foolproof. And if you have the older poles as well, your ledge is probably a little bit smaller. And we call this the palm. The top is rounded now, so it's nice for exercises. You can put the palm of your hand on the palm of the pole, do a nice stretch. etc. So your poles are fantastic. I mean, urban polling poles, we say they last a lifetime. I'm sure everybody's poles will last forever. But you know, they're fantastic. Those ones, these ones are just even more fantastic, we'll say.
Okay, that's great. That explains it. Cause yeah, mine are old, and I have two. I also have the older ones that I forget what they're called, but they actually are in 3 sections, and they were called their travel version. And they
Right.
compacted down even smaller than these new. They don't seem to offer those on the
No,
website
the
anymore.
adventure poles, they might be coming back again, but yeah, I know, hold on to those if you've got those.
Okay. But the boots fit all of them, right? And then one other question. So when you're out, when do you take the boots off and use the pokey thing?
That's a good
Like
thing.
when it's icy out, like right now, I live in Mississauga, so I'm not far from you.
Right.
And when I go out and it's icy, but it's kind of, there's a patch of pavement, then there's an ice spot, and I'm tending to take the boots off and just use the spikes, but then I'm worried about wearing the spikes down when I hit the pavement every few feet. So I don't know what the best way to do.
Generally speaking, we use the boot tips on hard surfaces. So on the sidewalk, on the road, you know, on any hard surface. When you go to the beach or you get on a trail on a soft surface, the sand, then you take it off and or on grass and you use the carbide tip, all right? It's the other surfaces that, it gets a little confusing sometimes. I often will tell people, whichever one gives you the best contact, whichever one sticks best, all right? So you can use this on grass and on sand on the beach, and that's fine. All right. Yes, it sticks nicely and you can push off. Great. The problem with using it on ice is I just caution people that if your feet are going to slip on ice, your poles are probably going to slip on ice. So I don't like people to have a false sense of security that the poles are the be all to end all and will save you when you're out walking. You know, ice is ice. So I suppose if you have icers on your shoes or you have shoes that you know, have flip down grips on them, then, you know, that's going to keep you nice and steady. And then maybe you could use your carbide tip on the ice. But, you know, ice is just, generally speaking, not a great surface to be walking on, I would say. So, sorry, there's not a better answer than that.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The problem with walking like this on the sidewalk is that you get this. And you'll have a migraine in like 5 minutes, I think. Plus, you've lost that nice shock absorption, right? And just imagine the vibrations going into your elbows and into your shoulders, right? We've got shock absorption here at the black ferrule here and up in the handle. And hopefully by the time, you know, vibrations, right, get up the pole, hopefully they're all dissipated by the time they get to your hand.
I'm just wondering if there's an easy way to change the tips. I have a bit of arthritis in my fingers. And when I try and change the tips, sometimes I'm not sure if I'm pressing it down far enough to be secure.
Yeah, the boot tip, you mean? This is hard to do. Is that what you're saying, Carrie? This is hard to do?
That's right. Right, yeah.
Yeah, you know what you could do? Often it's the other way around. People have trouble, they sometimes fall off. So when you first get them, this is a relatively new pair. These are quite sticky. It's just a pressure fit here, right? There's sort of rubber on rubbery stuff here. But when this gets sandy and a bit dirty, they actually slip off and on quite easily. And sometimes people can actually lose them depending on the circumstances. So I tell people, oh, that's easy. Just wipe this off and then stick something in here, wipe this off, and you'll get that sticky surface. Maybe you need to do the reverse. Maybe you need to put a little bit of baby powder or something, or even a little bit of dirt from the garden or something on these two surfaces just to get them to slide in and out a little more easily. You might just try that.
That's great. Thanks very much. I'll try that.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you. The person I saw that just flash up who said you've had your poles for 12 years. You've been polling poles for 12 years. That's fantastic. Well, I'll just throw one more thing out there. If you're an instructor, I'm trying to make this book that I'm writing and hope to have out in the spring as international as possible. And I'm looking for little tidbits from different instructors. So I know some of you and I will be in touch. But if you're interested in sharing something, then please just contact me on my website, just a quick little sentence or two, and then I'll get back to you. And I'm not looking for a big, huge time commitment or something. I just might ask you a question like, what do you do? You know, this, or if you have more time and interest, maybe you could show me a lesson plan that you have. So if that's of interest, then please be in touch. I'd love to hear from you.
All right. Well, Barb, thank you very much for taking time. And thank you all for joining us. This was highly informative. It was clear that everybody was engaged. And what I'll do is process the recording. I'll get it up on YouTube and share it out. And everybody feel free to share it around. So without further ado, I will go ahead and end the meeting so that we can all run to our computers and get on our browsers and download that book.
You got 10 minutes. Give me 1 minute to get to my computer.
Okay. All right. The clock is starting. Bye.
Thank you, Barb.
Take care.
You're
Have a great rest
welcome.
of the weekend.
Great talking to you all. Bye, everybody. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.